Okay, so TED Talks. I don't have like a studio like the people in the real TED Talks do. And honestly, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do for my skill because a lot of the stuff that I like to do is online. Either it's gaming or Photoshop or just map making, stuff like that. And so I decided to use my job. And I'm going to teach you how to make an espresso. So I'm a barista. I work for Starbucks. I've worked for them for about a year and a half now. And honestly, espresso is one of the things, it's like the main staple of what we do at Starbucks. But it's, for me, I've gone through the Coffee Master program. I'm going through it right now. So I learned a lot about where we get our beans from and how espresso is made, and the different types of espresso based on, the different roasts that you do. And it's really kind of become a way for me to connect with the people in my store, and the regulars that we get there every day. So there's 3 main parts to espresso. There is the milk, the espresso itself, and then it's water. You want good quality water. You don't want like tap water. I use Brita water in my espresso machine just because it is really important that you're able to have good quality water when you're making espresso. And so I have my espresso wand here, and I also have the measuring cup. So I'm going to use 2 scoops of espresso. And so espresso roast, I'm using espresso roast from Starbucks just because it's what I have. But generally you want to use a darker roast because it'll have nice, even flavors. It won't be too acidic, and it also won't be very, it won't be bold. It'll sort of have a nice balanced flavor to it, because when you get into that dark roast area is where all the flavors start to mellow out and you get a nice even flavor. So I used 1.5 scoops, and I can turn this around. I'll show you. It's got the espresso there, and so you need to tamp it down. Usually you want to distribute it, but I don't have a toothpick with me right now. You'd want to distribute it just so that the water flow is even. You don't get any random spurts going off. So you put the espresso in the machine once you have it all tamped down. And I'm using shot glasses here that have the measurements. So I'm just waiting for my espresso machine to sort of warm up a little bit. So while I'm waiting for that, I'm actually going to measure out my milk. So when you're making a latte, it's mostly milk. And it's 2 espresso shots. So I'm gonna pull 2 espresso shots from my bar, and I'm gonna steam about a 1/2 cup of milk here just to go with it, if I can get this open. There we go. So I'm going to pour it into my pitcher here. And you can measure it out if you want to. I usually don't, just because I know sort of what the measurements are. So my machine is ready here. So I'm going to start pouring the espresso. I'm going to watch carefully to make sure I don't go past the line that I'm waiting for. So I stop that right when it gets to the line, and I can show you what it looks like now. So there's 3 parts to it. There's this bottom layer here, the middle, and then the top, which is called the crema. And I am going to pour those into my mug here. Now in Starbucks, they usually want us to move pretty fast when we're doing that because the shots will die. And that just means that the 3 layers that we saw there in a second will just go together, and they will stop. They won't have as good of a flavor to them. So I'm going to steam my milk here. And I don't have a temperature gauge with me right now, so I'm just going based off of my finger. Just gauging the temperature, and once it is right, then I can stop it. And so when you're steaming milk, you want to put some air into it, and it'll form micro bubbles inside the foam, which will give it a nice texture. And that's usually what you use when you're making an espresso, is you want that texture there. Alright, so the milk's at about 170 now. So I'll pull that out and I'll pour it into my glass here. See if I can do some latte art. There we go. That's how you make a latte.